Hello, I hope you've all had a good lunch, those of you that have made it back. I'm going to be quick because we've got a tight brief today. Risk management. It's not loss prevention, it's risk management as far as the UK Club's concerned. So I'm going to take you through what we're doing on that front. It all started when we were thinking about how we are so negatively compared with the aviation industry, who appear to be so much more proactive than we do when it comes to risk management. It's fair to say that it's true to a certain extent. This is something you wouldn't see, of course, in a BA flight across the Atlantic. There's a smaller margin of error, of course, in aeroplanes and airborne transportation generally than there is in shipping. And the perception is that you can get away with more on a ship than you can in an aeroplane. In this case, you can, obviously. Or indeed this. But now in a significant reform, the UK Club is changing from adopting what we call a parallel inspection program to a fully integrated risk assessment model. And in doing so, we are becoming more proactive. So let me take you through our approach. What's the club doing? We're going to go through what the club is doing, and then, we're looking at the drivers, the three drivers, main drivers for the development of a proactive risk management. To do that, we need to look at what we mean by risk, and then we're going to drill down into the process a bit more to explain what exactly is being changed and what might soon be with us before we wrap up. So what's the club doing? We're channeling our work better, drawing the sources of data together, and not just from the club manager, Thomas Miller, but also from the ship operators themselves, and pooling that information into a risk management system, making use of the analysis that's been accumulated since the 1980s with the purpose of reducing claims and thereby reducing premium. That is the overall objective, of course. Let's look at these industry drivers for proactive risk assessment. There are three of them, you can see here. Profit first. Businesses are generally not philanthropic organizations. Ship owners, of course, are no different. They're in business to make profit for themselves, shareholders, and investors. Claims affect the bottom line directly. So if you're turning a profit of, let's say, 10% on your turnover, and you are within the 40% of the club that has an annual claims totaling in excess of $500,000, you'd need to bring in an additional $5 million in freight to cover those claims. So I'm talking about P&I claims, of course. So generally, those are insured off. But the more your claims cost, the more your insurance costs. The more time you have to spend dealing with them, the less time you have to work on new or existing business, and there's always the possibility that you develop a name for yourself, for being claims prone or even worse. Operators are now under intense pressure to show that they can control their claims, their risks. Culture change. So we're not only living in a world where there's less money in the system after 2008, we now live in a show me world rather than a trust me world. Trust me, I'm a large, well-established quality ship owner. It just doesn't work anymore. In the same way that saying, for example, you're a clergyman or a judge or a banker or a politician doesn't work anymore. It's about showing me. Charterers want to see evidence, authorities want to see evidence, and the courts need evidence to get the results that you need. Regulation, of course, is the third driver. Changes in the ISM have brought about a plethora of information and data. Port state control have become tougher. They want to see more data and evidence. And, of course, the objectives of the company should establish safeguards against all identifiable risks. That is now codified. So an operator has to assess all risks to its ships, personnel and the environment, and establish appropriate safeguards. There are a lot of happy risk consultants out there at the moment. So what's risk? It's different things to different people. Depends on how you see it. As an insurer, we look at it like this. The number or the frequency of claims there on the vertical axis of this graph are multiplied by the respective values or the consequence on the horizontal axis. This gives us a formula. And once we have a formula, we are able to prioritize, which we can do in several ways. You can prioritize your claims by ship name, cause of the claim, type of injury, type of accident, type of damage, any number of ways. And it allows you to cut the cake in a way that gives you analytical powers. We are risk managers as insurers, so obviously we need to do something about the risk. In order to work out what we need to do, we asked ourselves what we do best. And we realized that we needed to develop a claim structure which we could use to house all claims. And once we had that, and it had been customized for our purposes, we devised a risk-based assessment program. What does a P&I Club do best? No answers. Okay. We think that what we do best, because we're in a unique position, is measure the damage caused by any number of incidents to assets, the environment, and people. We cover 90% of the world's fleet in the international group, so we are privileged to have that sort of perspective. But we can't tell our members what to do. We're not experts at running ships. There are 22 mariners within the club's personnel, which is nothing compared to some of the fleets out there, of course. But if we concentrate on what we do best, which we say is handling claims, then we are able to develop the system better. Every month, as you see, we have 600 claims, and they're worth $13 million a month, and we have the personnel to handle those claims. As it says there, we know what goes wrong, we pay for it. We know, for example, that personal injury claims are now cost more than cargo claims. We know that the main cause of large claims is deck officer crew error, with an increasing input of shore personnel. We know, for example, that most large cargo claims are caused by water damage, and that most cargo claims are accidents waiting to happen. Our data, our research tells us this. So the clubs know what goes wrong, they pay for it, but at the moment, a lot of the data lies unstructured and unused in computers. The theory is that we need to pull it together. And how do we put that into practice? Well, what we've done is, as I've said, develop a claim structure. I'm sure you're familiar with this risk management tool, the bow tie. As you see on the left, we have the threats. You've got the hazard in the middle, and you've got the consequences on the right. To prevent the hazard from being released, we need to have controls in place to reduce that risk, the chance of that risk occurring. We call those preventative controls. Similarly, if the hazard is released, you need to have recovery controls to limit the effect of that hazard release. So this provides a simple structure. Is anybody else using this methodology? Who isn't? All these companies are. We need then to, of course, sorry. An obvious statement, but isn't that true? So let's look at developing this basic structure a little bit further. That's what we've done. If we record the threats, the consequences, and the controls relevant to cargo claims or the club's claims generally, consistently, in a repeatable manner, we can provide an ongoing benchmark against which to measure risk. Build up a history for reference purposes. You can show the problems early and clearly to everyone, from the ship to the boardroom. And you can prove, most importantly to others, that your members are in control of their risks. At this point, we're already taking the next step, which is looking to manage that risk. And this is what the club is doing at this point. You can't manage what you can't measure. So here you see at the top we've got wet damage, our number one cause, but there are another 11 below that we've identified as threats. They all lead, if they're not controlled, to the hazard, and then ultimately to a monetary cost, the consequence which is a claim. And here you can see for bulk cargo how that's developed into a full risk analysis vehicle. You've got all the 12 threats there with their controls in place, the hazard, and a number of controls there before you get to the ultimate consequence. Hopefully you can see how the analysis works. Yay! We've developed a structure for all the club's claims. How do we use it to reduce claims? Well, risk profiling is one way. We've done that for club, individual members, individual ships, and the cost to the member or the club. We've also input information from claims executives and underwriters which pinpoint what has gone wrong, so that we know those threats that we see most often. We've had data collecting exercises in the past, as I said, since the 1980s. Putting that information together with other subsequent projects, we've been able to work out which controls are most likely to fail. So we know the threats and we know the controls that usually fail. We then use our technical staff, they used to be called ship inspectors, they're now called risk assessors, to assess the effectiveness of those controls. Each control is rated 1 to 5. And you can see here that there's the cargo loading, discharge supervision. There's a number of criteria that are examined there by the assessor. On the threat side, it also occurs on the recovery control side as well. And that assessment, and don't forget these assessors are experienced seafarers or chief engineers. They've got over 2,000 reference points that they've developed from the system in tandem with our claims handlers and underwriters. So there is a lot of work that goes behind this analysis. So we now have verifiable, transparent, structured risk assessment system based on solid claims data. Ultimately, we can narrow it down to 7 hazards, 76 threats, for which there are 450 controls which need to be in place and effective if the threat's to be contained. And there are 2,000 areas of control which we've seen failure cause a control to be deficient and result in a claim. Oh, sorry. So what form does the assessment take? It's a short visit at the moment, and the summary of those findings are discussed with the crew, the master, and if necessary, that is then passed to the management office. In the future, the aim is to take that work and use it to work closer with the members where the claims trends indicate that there might be a specific issue that needs to be addressed. This is the sort of, that way. This is the sort of assessment form we've got. There's an overall assessment form. Threats are assessed and the controls are analytically examined. Benefits are that it's inclusive. It involves claims, underwriting, loss prevention, risk assessors. Account managers have got more information to discuss with the members. Underwriters have more information to discuss with brokers. The members have more information for their office and for their crews. It's structured, it's repeatable, transparent. It focuses on the claim types that cost the club money, so it concentrates the effort. It focuses on the causes of those claims and the strength of the controls which are in place. And ultimately, it's flexible because you can modify the system frequently to cope with changing claims patterns. But above all, it's proactive. You are able to show why the world at large should trust you because you are a well-established quality ship owner. You have a tool to do so. In the future, well, the hope is that we can gear initiatives for prevention according to individual controls where appropriate. It's a better tool for the club, for the membership, and generally. So we have a range of our specifically geared literature. We've identified, for example, that slips, trips, and falls are a big source of claims against the club. Moorings as well. Should have not really after lunch picture that one. And checklists. And ultimately we're moving towards the option of self-assessment where the member has the opportunity to involve their crew in the process. So, structured system to pinpoint and reduce avoidable expense which can be shared with the members. Thank you.